Jesus said, "When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, then he will sit on the throne of his glory. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate people from one another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And he will put the sheep at his right hand and the goats at the left. Then the king will say to those at his right hand, 'Come, you that are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you took care of me. I was in prison, and you visited me.' Then the righteous will answer him, 'Lord, when was it that we saw you hungry and gave you food, or thirsty and gave you something to drink? And when was it that we saw you a stranger and welcomed you, or naked and gave you clothing? And when was it that we saw you sick or in prison and visited you?' And the king will answer them, 'Truly I tell you, just as you did it to one of the least of these who are members of my family, you did it to me.' Then he will say to those at his left hand, 'You that are accursed, depart from me into the eternal fire, prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me no food. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you did not welcome me. Naked, and you did not give me clothing. Sick and in prison, and you did not visit me.' Then they also will answer, 'Lord, when was it that we saw you hungry or thirsty, or a stranger or naked, or sick or in prison, and did not take care of you?' Then he will answer them, 'Truly I tell you, just as you did not do it to the one of the least of these, you did not do it to me. And these will go away into eternal punishment, but the righteous into eternal life.'" The gospel of the Lord. When going through the game of life with all of its ups and downs, remember Christ is the King, so crown him with many crowns. I love that hymn, don't you? Crown him with many crowns. What is the crowning moment in life? What do you think it is for you personally? It should be that moment in your life where you say, "Yes, my entire life, my entire existence, it comes to that one moment." Is that a hard thing for you to determine what your crowning moment might be? I searched and said, where are the crowning moments that we see today with individuals in the public? And there weren't a lot of them per se, literally, but we did see a crowning moment with the coronation of a king who goes by Charles not too long ago. And then just recently, you may have watched that crowning moment where the song is constantly in your head of Miss Universe being crowned. And you can see from that, what a buildup, right? Here we see these crowning moments. But did you know there's also crowning moments in the church? For example, Roman Catholics, they go by the month of May where they do a crowning of Queen Mary. That's a big deal for the Catholics. With the Orthodox, when they get married, they have crowns put on the head of the bride and the groom. That is their crowning moment seen in holy matrimony. So we can relate a little bit with maybe what those crowning moments may be, and maybe this is giving you a moment to reflect on your own personal crowning moment in your life. I would like to bring another analogy to you so that I don't let anyone go away abandoned, feeling like a goat or a sheep. Well, I want you to feel like a sheep, but not a goat. We'll get to that in the parable in a minute. What is something that you can relate to as that moment? Well, maybe it's something very simple. You know, there is this game, not of life, but maybe it has a little to do with life, but mainly it's a game that has 12 pieces on one side and 12 pieces on the other side, these little round things, and they got little rough edges around them. And when I play it, my traditional colors, I guess, would be red or black. And the board has all of these squares all over it. So you got 12 of these pieces on one side, 12 on the other side, and the goal is for each of the players to get their little pieces across. What is that game I'm thinking of? Checkers, good. You know, checkers has been around for a long time. They found a checkered board in Iraq that dated 3000 BC. It's been around a long time. Here on this game, which I hope all of us have played it before, it's an ancient game. It's not a hard game to pick up. What is truly the objective of checkers? Be the last man standing. And that last checker or checkers on your side has one goal: to make an advancement across the board. And can your checker at the very beginning, I call it the plebe stage, the little basic, hardly any power stage, as they're going across, can they go backwards? No, they have to go forwards. They have to zigzag, and they have to use strategy so that they can evade being jumped by the opponent. And the opponent's really good, right? Have you ever played a professional checker player? Oh my goodness, it's like they know your every move. It's like they know where you're going to go before you go there. And when you think you've got a clear shot, they move their pieces and they just jump right over you. They take you off the board. And there's nothing more disturbing and disappointing in your heart when you realize you have fewer and fewer pieces to get across. And when you do finally get across, that is your crowning moment. You become a king. And one of those checkers is taken from the lost and is put on top of that successor and making them a king. And oh, the power you get when you're a king. Because now you can go across the board, forwards and backwards, and move real freely, and hopefully you can go out and take out the opponent. But do not be confused. The game of checkers is for one reason: to win. Christ the King Sunday is a story of the game of life in which God is at battle with a professional known as the devil, who's trying to take the pieces off of the board. Throughout time, all humanity, the pieces are put on the board, and we struggle to get across, and we don't want to be taken out. I think one of the worst pieces of strategy for checker players is thinking that your checker, your one out of the entire 12, is going to make it across no matter what. The opponent sees that and they take it out quickly. What are those attributes of that sole checker, thinking they have the ability to make it across without the help of their other 11? Could it be a little pride? Could be a little self-centeredness? A little arrogance? Surely I won't get touched. But the key with checkers is playing together as a team. Sometimes a sacrifice is made in order for another one to make it across. And when we look at the game of life, that which exists before all time, throughout the struggles of humanity and all of its ups and downs, the devil is doing his best to take your piece off the table. And Jesus knows this, and that's why he says you need each other. But most importantly, you need me. The beauty of Jesus, who is truly the king, but not yet on this board. He's going across. He doesn't stand out. The devil never knew what was happening. He might have let it go so he could take out the others around. But Jesus went right through the middle and got to the other side. That is the majesty of that play. God the Father placed his Son in order to make it across, but that's not the final objective. It was to be crowned so that he could come back and save the rest. Isn't that a beautiful way of looking at a crowning moment? Today in our parable, in the 25th chapter of Matthew, he uses an expression that's very unique to Matthew. I don't think you'll find this in John or Mark. I'll have to look at the Lucan narrative. But Matthew refers to Jesus calling himself the Son of Man. Why would he say the Son of Man when the other evangelists call him the Son of God? Could it be for the purpose that he would go through undetected, through this creative order? He wasn't crowned at this moment. That had to wait until the cross. It had to wait until the resurrection, had to wait until the ascension. And then we hear the Holy of Holies and we see the kingship of Christ. He came back for us. That is a critical piece if we believe that Christ is the King. In the gospel, let me get my words right here. The gospel uses some language I think is very telling. You know, Jesus was always using the parables, whether it was the 10 bridesmaids 2 weeks ago, whether or the oil that was in the lamp, in the passage we heard last week. He's using these parables in order to point people to the reality of who he is. He is a Messiah. He is the Son of God. But he's also referred to as the Son of Man. We have to think about that, because at this precious time in the life of those 12 pieces, the disciples, they were not ready to behold the King of Kings. They still needed to walk with him and go through the myriad places on the board together with the struggles, those ups and those downs. And they had plenty of them, just as we do. They weren't ready. And he even brings this out in his parable in the I am-ism of who he is. He says, "Come, you that are blessed by my Father," his disciples, right? "Inherit the kingdom prepared for you from when? The foundation of the world." At the very beginning of creation, God's crowning moment for humanity was creating us in his image. But the crowning moment for God was the resurrection of his Son, Jesus, the grand coronation of his victory over the most important thing. And this is what, dearly beloved, God set out to do. He set out the Son of Man, crowned, becoming the Son of God, in order to conquer death. That's the ultimate game of checkers between God and the devil. As one is trying to remove the pieces, Jesus is trying to restore them. And when he gets to the other side, typically you get one other piece. Where would you get it from? The one that was taken. And you would crown that crown. Jesus is like the super checker king. Because as many pieces as the devil thinks he's taken off the board, Jesus brings them back into his own fold, into his kingdom, and the crowns upon crowns upon crowns are placed upon his head. Crown him with many crowns. Look at your cover art today on the front page of your customary, if you would. Cecilia Lawrence, she's a contemporary artist. And in that, you should see a few things about the crowning, the coronation. First, it is cosmic. It's happening throughout the universe. You see that where Christ is seated above the world. You see the promise with the rainbow, which is the promise of God's salvation in the Old Testament. But do you see the Hebrew tetragrammaton, which is on the top? That is, I am who I am. That is God speaking as God. And just in case you don't get it in your native tongue, the artist put I am on the other side of his face, who is Christ the King. And how many crowns does he have on his head? It looks like he's got about 3 of them, doesn't it? And who is surrounding him proclaiming this message? Pieces that may have one day, a long time ago, been taken off the board, to which God has restored, to which their crowns have crowned him with many crowns. And now we see the symbols of the evangelists. We see the lion, we see the eagle, and we see the bull. These are all the symbols of the evangelists, of John, of Luke, Matthew, and Mark. They're crying out his name, crying for the sheep so that they wouldn't become the goats. A few things I want you to know here is that if you're left-handed, do not take the gospel personally. Where it says those who are on the left hand are accursed. That's not what he's saying. It doesn't mean that on this side of me or that side of me. But what Christ is saying is that those who are on my side of the pieces that are advancing for eternal life, those are the sheep. Those are the ones on the right hand. And sometimes, I don't know how you feel about this, but as you advance through the game of life, and sometimes you might be feeling like you're useless, you don't have anything going on, you might feel a little lowly, a little impoverished in your heart and your soul. You might be a little thirsty for righteousness. You might be a little hungry for his name's sake. You might be naked and vulnerable, I don't think I can go out there and proclaim the message of Christ. And yet when you do, and when you do it for and with others, Jesus is saying, you visited me, the Son of Man, who is also the Son of God. Pre-crowning, post-crowning. The victory over death, the promise of eternal life, is there to be heard by those on the left and the right, the sheep and the goats. And all of us are somewhere on this game of life, and we have to figure out, we have to discern, we have to listen. Oh Lord, when did I visit you? When will you visit Christ, the Son of Man and the Son of God, in his earthly human self and in his heavenly, holy self, eternal self? Where are you with him? Are you visiting those who are alone? Are you attending to those who thirst and are hungry and in prison and naked? Are you attending to those, dearly beloved? God has sent you plenty of opportunities. And whether you're going to that left spot or that right spot, you know what your destination is. So that when you play the game of life with all of its ups and its downs, remember that Christ is the King. So please, crown him with many crowns. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.